Island Fresh.
I see.
Yeah. Took me back to like high school.
Me too.
Okay.
That smell. Hey, welcome to the after party, and what a show we have in store for you guys. Of course, wrapping up primary election results, talking about re-elections, recounts, and a whole lot more. My co-host Sabrina Salas-Mantanani and our after party guest tonight from the Lou and Josh campaign, former Senator Rory Respicio.
Good evening.
Our House political analyst, Dr. Ron McNinch. And from the Republican Party, he's the executive director, Juan Carlos Benitez.
Half a day.
Today, thanks for joining us.
So first of all, let's discuss that congressional race. Seems to be on a lot of people's minds today. We were able to interview the Congresswoman Madeleine Berdallo, and I think a lot of people are still in shock.
Mm-hmm.
My question to you is, how do we not see this coming?
I wish I knew. You know, it's. I think I lost the poll last night and Saturday night because I had her winning the Democratic primary. It is a shocker, particularly an individual against an individual that had refused to sign the unity pledge of the party that same week. But it's you know, it's Democrats. You never know what they can do.
Or it's Republicans participating in Democrat elections. I mean, we had an 84% turnout, which when I was in the first panel, you know, I thanked all those that voted in the election, particularly those that participated in the Democratic side of the ballot. And we clearly saw those kind of crossovers, and we saw that like in the 2002 and 2006 elections, when Republicans participated in a Democrat election to try to get someone to be advanced, and in the general election they'll have an easier time defeating that person.
So let me ask you this: if you believe Republicans participated in the Democrat election and voted for Senator Mike Nicholas, why would they do that?
Well, maybe because they believe that Mike Nicholas going up against Doris Brooks might be easier than Madeleine going up against Doris Brooks. And I don't want to take anything away from Senator Nicholas. Congratulations to him and his team for winning, but I know that he realizes, along with all the other candidates, even the Lou and Josh team, as well as every member in the Democratic side that won for the legislature, the primary, they all recognize that the primary election only means that you're qualified to advance to the general election, and it's going to take continue work reaching out to everybody, as what Lou and Josh has been doing since the morning of the election, reaching out to the other gubernatorial teams. They've had their village leaders and their village organization reach out to all the other gubernatorial camps to make it known that going forward they realize that we're not going to win the general election unless everybody is united. And I'm sure Senator Nicholas has that same thinking. I'm sure he's either going to reach out or has already reached out to Senator Madeleine Berdallo. I'm sure that the 15 senatorial candidates are going to reach out to the other 5 that didn't make it, recognizing that we started together and we're going to end together.
If you're Senator Nicholas, though, just knowing and observing his political career, I'm pretty sure he's seeing this as a mandate, as something that is going to galvanize him heading into the general.
Yeah, and I would wish that he doesn't see it that way, because the primary election only meant that he qualifies to be in the general election. We've seen in the past, for example, in the legislature, we've seen someone come in number 1 thinking, wow, maybe this is a good sign, and then for whatever reason, in the general election, that number 1 candidate didn't even make the top 15. So I don't think
Who was that?
I think that was Frank Blas in the last election, but I don't think any Democratic candidate is going to take their primary election victory to chance. I think they're just going to continue to work hard, if not work harder, to bring more people and to recognize that the support of everybody is needed in order to have those kinds of victories.
You know, there's something that I would like to address, right? Everybody keeps trying to blame the Republicans for Madeleine loss. And I understand that none of the Democratic sections wants to say that they were the ones that coordinated or organized that. But I think that it's really far-fetched when you had 19 senatorial candidates running for those positions to say that the Republicans came in and said, let them be on their own and decide who's going to win those. I think that it's more likable and more likely that there was an agreement reached by Mr. San Nicolas with one of the 2 Democratic teams that was running to put all their votes together for him in exchange for him to tell his folks to put their votes with
I don't
that
know where
particular
these
group.
conspiracy theories are coming, but then I'll accept the fact that Republicans vote in the Democrat race because we had the choices.
No,
and
no,
we welcome those.
Not
kinds
to
of
buy
things.
into the conspiracy theory, but
then the second thing, which I think is interesting, is I keep hearing all the Democrats try to say that they all feel that San Nicolas was a weaker candidate or is a weaker candidate in the
I don't
general
know who
election.
said that. I didn't say that. Now.
I feel like that's dangerous. I don't.
Yeah.
I think St. Nicholas is. Obviously he's very popular.
I don't think he's a weak candidate. I think he's a strong candidate, but I still think we're going to
But maybe they were just going in line with the black helicopters that you're seeing. Maybe they felt he was weaker because he has more of a tendency to implode down the campaign stretch. I mean, we've seen him walk out of session. We've seen him throw tantrums, and maybe that's why the Republicans felt like he was a weaker candidate. But I don't think it was an organized effort. I mean, we've heard that maybe there was one, but I think there was just so much going on the Democratic side of the ballot, and maybe that's why a lot of people voted, including Republicans.
Let's go back to your original question.
Okay.
And the original question was, how did we miss this? Do you know why I missed it? Because I didn't do my job. That's why. I got lazy. I took things for granted. Last poll we had was back in March, and it showed she was 52% minimum. And nothing had changed, really. But there is one thing. In all of our polling right before the election, we knew about 20% of Republicans would vote Republican. That's what we thought. And it ended up being like more 15%. So 5%, which isn't that much, kind of shifted, and that's just enough. That's about 1,500 votes, and maybe some of the blanks or whatever. That's just enough to tip the scale a little bit. But I don't think it was a mass conspiracy by anybody. I think I got lazy and didn't do my dang job, and I should have.
So was Madeline lazy? Was she not out there aggressive enough, campaigning?
I think she was just careful and trying to be polite to Mike, because that's how she is. Mm-hmm. She doesn't believe in rough and tumble partisan primary elections. She's always been that way. Also, I didn't do my job because I didn't hold a forum for the Congress seat this time. I usually do that we do it at the university. So that's a little bit of it too.
And I think the difference too between Madeline and Mike is that I get this feeling that Mike will do whatever it takes to win. Mm-hmm. I mean, he showed up at Amanda Shelton's fundraiser, and this is Amanda Shelton, who works for Congresswoman Berdallo, and he was out there waving, and that was like, everyone said it was tasteless. It was, it was lacking tact, but he would do it. I mean, he'll do those kind of things, and maybe at the end of the day, Congresswoman Berdallo, in taking the high road and running the same campaign that she always runs, just wasn't enough to beat a guy who'll do whatever it takes to win.
Do you believe that, or do you still think that the Republicans were messing with the
No,
primary?
I think my point is, I'm not saying that Mike is a weaker candidate, and I think that he will still prevail in the general election if he does not take the election for granted. Like I said, that the primary election results only means that they all advance to the general election. So if Senator Nicholas is going to see his election victory as a clear mandate and it's just going to carry the momentum forward, I don't think he would do that. I would think that he would continue to try to maintain the votes that he received and then try to get more votes. And you begin that by reaching out to Congresswoman Berdallo and her supporters and start making those kinds of
Can you see him doing that, though, if he wouldn't even sign a unity pledge?
No, I don't want to speak for him, but I also don't want my position to be misinterpreted that he's the weaker of the two candidates.
Yeah.
Obviously, he wasn't the weaker of the two candidates because he prevailed in the primary.
Yeah.
But if he's going to dismiss the work that's going to be required, the work that Lou and Josh are doing, the work that the 15 senatorial candidates are doing to reach out to the other camps, then that will assure his election victory in the general election. Whether or not he signed the unity pledge, he did receive the number of votes necessary to advance to the general election. So those are two separate
And he didn't do it
issues.
by himself. And that's what the knock I have on Senator St. Nicholas is, obviously he's a very intelligent person, and he has a lot of support. And what I'd like to see is for him to make it less about himself and help these other candidates. I mean, that's what the party is really about. It's not, a one-man show. And I think he's missing that in terms of, he has a lot of valuable ideas, and he could help bring along the whole party. I know he tried that with Senator Regine Bisco Lee and Jermaine Alerta and Senator Tina Nelson, but then they had a falling out, which I don't know how it happened, but that's just my only knock on him. I mean, signing the unity pledge, of course, maybe voters will see him as somewhat of a maverick for doing that, but I look at it differently. I feel like here's a guy who obviously has some ideas, and he could help bring people along instead of just worrying about himself.
Something was very interesting, and as you look at the election numbers, there were 1,600 undervotes on the congressional race. That's 1,600 people that went to the primary and decided not to pick either of the candidates that was running. Mm-hmm. That was double any other of the races. I think the closest one was 900 votes in, I think, for the Attorney General office. So I'm sort of intrigued where that comes in. Why do you think that so many of the Democrats would decide that they didn't want to vote for either of the candidates that were being presented?
But we do know that in the gubernatorial race, there was definitely a lot of crossovers, which the gubernatorial teams on the Democratic side appealed to those who were likely to vote Republican in the race, and maybe that could be attributed to the fact there was only one team on the Republican side. Or it could be attributed to the fact that the Democratic Party has constantly said that we're the party of the Big Tent, that we welcome everybody. And Lou and Josh has also taken a very proactive, welcoming, and inviting position to say that if you're Democrat, please vote for us. If you're a Republican and you're not satisfied with the choice that you have,
we'll take anybody.
Well, because everybody matters. And if you're an independent, we still, the camp has a home for those kinds of cross-sector of voters. And so in that case, that they played it very genuinely, very sincerely, but after the primary election, they just didn't sit back and say, okay, we won the primary, that's it. No, we saw that they've been reaching out, making personal calls to the other camps, talking about how we're going to have to move forward together.
But that wasn't the question. The question is, why do you think 1,600 Democrats decided not to pick either candidate?
Why do you think 1,600 Democrats?
I don't know. I'm sort of that's why I'm asking.
Well, when someone doesn't pick either or, then that means they're not happy with the choices they have, so they just don't make a decision, right?
Well, and yeah, I mean, I guess philosophically, there wasn't really a big difference between Bordallo and San Nicolas. I mean, maybe personally there was, but and I feel like they kind of represented the same set of ideas, although San Nicolas would be a little bit more to the moderate, I mean, in my opinion, the moderate right-wing side. So maybe you're right, maybe people felt like, and I did hear a lot of people complain that, people were saying they wanted former Speaker Judy Wampat to run because she represented kind of a different side of that Democratic Party, group of ideals. Dr. Ron, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing new about a member of Congress being voted out of office. It happened certainly to Congressman Wampat here. It happened certainly to Congressman Blas here. We've had several members of Congress, delegates to Congress get voted out. There's nothing new about this. It's just it hasn't happened in our recent memory,
right?
And that's the problem. Is the last time this happened was when Underwood was able to unseat Blas, and it was a rough and tumble race at that point. So,
and it also brings up the issue of our standing of Guam in Congress, and particularly in a time where this build-up's coming up. Madam Bordallo had, because of her seniority, was the ranking Democrat in the Readiness Subcommittee. And I don't think a lot of people here understand that, but basically 80% of the entire Department of Defense budget is determined by the Readiness Subcommittee. Mm-hmm. And as ranking member, when a bill goes to conference, when the House and the Senate don't agree, they got to go to conference and they're going to work out what that bill is going to look like and what benefit it has. The ranking member, by regulation, is required to be a member of that conference. So every time that the Department of Defense wanted to get their additional things in other areas, or some senator or congressman from another state wanted to make sure that their bases were kept okay, they proceeded to make sure we'll also include what Guam needs. And here's something for Guam. That is gone from now on, because neither of the candidates that are up, they're both going to be junior members. If they're lucky in the Armed Services Committee, and we have no idea if they even will be able to allow to be joined the Readiness Subcommittee. And even then, when you go to conference, they're not going to be there.
Okay, really, really important, just a little civics thing.
Yeah.
A conference committee is when the members of the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, it's a rare opportunity for our delegate to interface with the Senate. So that's a really, really, really critical role. And we've lost it now. We don't have that anymore.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Let's move on to the,
Are you sure you guys want to move on? Because
you want to keep on
seems
talking?
like
or-
this
That's
is
a very
pretty-
important point.
Yeah.
No, it's something that we need to realize, because right now there's senators and congressmen that had given funds to Guam because of making sure that they needed her to support their issues, that are now going on and go back and say in the next bill, how can we take some of those funds back into our coffers and move it to my state?
So
And-
why then, given that argument, did the Republican Party put up a candidate?
We put out a candidate because we feel that at the end of the day, you need to look at the majority, and the majority right now in
The
Congress
majority
is
is going to
Republican.
flip to Democrats in
Oh,
the House. Yeah.
I'll bet you dinner.
I'm not making any more bets. No,
Dinner.
Dinner bets are jinxed on
no,
us.
no more, no more.
Let's
By the
talk
way,
about the legislative race.
Yes.
We'll start with the Republicans' low totals here. Like, I think the top Republican voter
Because
didn't
they
have as
were on
many-
our
yeah.
side, and we're very happy that they participate in the Democratic side of the
Look,
ballot.
the entire excitement of having 4 gubernatorial candidates running against each other on a party was on the Democratic side. We were already in our side united, and we picked our candidates. We have one candidate. The only area where there was any voting going on was on the senatorial side. Everything else was set. So our expectation, we were looking at 20% was what we were saying and expecting to get. We got a little bit less than that, so no surprise on our side. You know, on the Democratic side, of course we expected that we're going to get a lot of people. You have 4 individuals going for governor and 4 individuals going for lieutenant governor that are doing everything humanly possible. In fact, I think Lou wrote her own $1 million check to make sure that she was going to make it through this process.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, $500,000. It's okay,
Well,
but it's
not $1 million. I mean, the campaign was able to
but
raise
you
money.
you can understand that that's going to attract a lot of votes. You know, they're going to go. This is what they want, and they're going to fight for it to the nail. On our side, we're already set. The big time we're all going to come out is going to be for the general. So we're holding our powder. We're saving our money, and we're going to come in strong now.
But the gubernatorial team on the Republican side spent a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
They ran as if though they had opposition.
They spent almost $500,000.
Yeah, they didn't
And
just
that would
sit back.
be less than half.
Yeah, no, I'm
No,
just
but
saying,
still,
like,
just
running
saying
on
that
opposed.
Yeah, running unopposed.
one team versus 4.
I wasn't able to watch a movie for 2 years without seeing a Republican commercial. And then I wasn't able to watch YouTube or Hulu because of the Democrat side. So I was crossed. I mean, I couldn't go see a movie or I couldn't watch online. But either side, I was caught. So it balanced out.
Okay, so Republican senators. I got to
Well,
ask you,
can-
how do
can-
you think they compare the Republican slate with the Democratic slate?
Well, on the Democratic side, you know, we saw that this year the incumbents. We saw that the incumbents did very well. We saw that returning Senator Tina Rose-Miller Barnes placed top 5.
Yeah.
We also saw people like Sabina Perez and Kelly Marsh,
Did really
Tyrone
well.
Titano's wife. We saw that she did very well for their first time out. We saw, and then rounding that out was Lacia Casillas. I mean, so we saw the kind of voters that came out in droves, all 84% of them, and what that did to kind of position the Democratic Party with the gubernatorial, the legislature, and the congressional slate. And the party will continue to make it so that this unity, this idea of being united moves forward
I was surprised
Yeah.
Will
Yeah.
Parkinson didn't make
Will
the cut.
Parkinson, yeah. Given,
I think Bunker did higher than Will.
He just didn't campaign
and
enough.
also Senator Palacios,
Yeah.
made the cut. So
Mhm.
we'll see. I mean, I think if you look at both Democrat and Republican candidates, that
Incumbents
may-
did the best.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we have a really big opportunity to have a female majority in the legislature.
I think there's
So-
going to be a female supermajority.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be 10, my view.
yeah. It'll be
And they're all wonderful, by the way.
Want to
It'd
bet
be
dinner
Wonderful
on that?
women.
That's right.
It'll be interesting if
Start
they decide to
betting
create their own party.
Let's
But-
talk about the Democratic candidates who have been critics and opponents of the administration and how well they did. Was that kind of like vindication for them?
Well, in particular, we saw Senator Talina Nelson having really bad, standing up to the administration regarding.
At one
the
point, the
nominee.
chief of police asked her to
Yeah.
resign from her position overseeing public safety, which I think was pretty big deal.
She was two, right? Two?
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It's not vindication because I don't think any of them felt like they needed to be vindicated. I
Right.
think it was validation
There
that
you
when
go.
they keep doing the people's work, the voters will reward them.
Yeah, it would be surprising that all this Republican crossover that went on that side decided to support the candidates that had opposed the administration, right?
I mean, in all fairness,
and mostly incumbent, because I would say if I actually were looking at actually doing a move to go over there, wouldn't I have chosen the weakest senatorial candidates that were there and make sure that the incumbents didn't make it through?
No,
just a thought, just a thought if I'm going with that
I think
theory.
Juan
Okay,
voters
just so
are-
that
are
there's
pretty
no,
independent-minded,
just so
though,
that
you know.
there's no misunderstandings of what I'm saying. Let's just accept the fact that for this election, Senator Stiglitz was stronger than Congressman Berdalio, and he won the primary race without any outside influence or any kind
So
of.
you're doubling back on what you said.
I am only because I think it's if I don't do this, then my comments might be misinterpreted that I'm not speaking highly or respectful of the party's standard bearer for the congressional race, and so I want.
Is he the party's standard bearer if he didn't sign the unity pledge?
Well, he ran as a Democrat, and he was, when he goes to Congress, if he prevails, he would be part of the Democratic makeup in Congress.
Why isn't there any repercussions for not signing the unity pledge? I mean, so
There
what-
was.
There was?
Sure. There were members of the Democrat Party who made an issue of it and spoke out about it. The problem is they have to have a mass. I forget what number it is of the party controlling members that have to make that point. But that didn't happen. I think Mr. Perez led that particular issue.
Right, he was pushing that. And then with the results of the primary, I don't think the Democratic Party wants to challenge Senator Nicholas anymore. I think, in fact, he's going to get more clout and be able to do whatever he wants because at the end of the day, he can say, "Look, I'm walking around with 13,000 votes behind me."
Well, you're right. It makes that whole issue moot only because there are other things that that people have to focus on regarding this election. And again, I keep stressing that I'm sure that Senator Stiglitz is not going to take his primary election victory by chance, and that he is going to reach out to everybody to try to sustain the momentum that he's.
But going back to what you were saying, Juan, Republicans voting for Democrats, I mean, as an independent voter myself, and I know a lot of independent voters, you go in and both parties have good candidates.
They both do.
Right, so I could see Republicans voting for good Democrats in a general election, or in this case, a primary election.
And we had 900 of them that didn't understand that if they chose one side, they couldn't go to the other side. But it's, first of all, I do want to say we have a really good senatorial slate, and we're very excited about the candidates that we have there. You asked where the Republicans were. How many people voted in this primary? 52% of the registered voters.
Right.
Well, that's where the other Republicans are. That other 48% that
Stayed
wasn't
home.
there, stayed home, didn't have a reason to come to this election, but wanted to make sure that they were registered for the general. And that's where you're going to see them come out.
There is another thing. There's a thing we call Occam's razor, which is the simplest explanation, is probably the most correct observation. In my view, people were voting in the Democrat side of the ballot simply because it was more fun.
Yeah.
It's real simple. It's more fun. They have 4 choices. There's no choices. I mean, come on. To me, it's not a diabolical scheme or anything. It's just simply, it's more fun. You get more choice.
More bang for your buck.
And you do get some of this family loyalties. There's a lot of families here in Guam, and if the family members running, I'm sure that these people will go on that side, regardless of which party they
On
belong
the
to.
Democrat side, we were hearing that it's possible that those who were going to vote for Lieutenant Governor Tenorio and Senator Ada, that they were going to participate in the Democrat gubernatorial race to try to skew the outcome.
And who would they vote for if they
Well,
wanted to?
I'm not sure, but in their pamphlet it said, they made an aggressive, active campaign to the credit to say stay Republican. Because I'm sure you sensed that also, right? That if Ray didn't, Tenorio didn't need the vote, so let me just go vote somewhere else.
The danger of Republicans voting Democrat is they might not come back.
Just be
Right.
careful what you ask
yeah.
for.
Once you go Democrat,
Actually, what we say in the Republican Party, when you're young, most people tend to start as Democrat, and as they grow older and start working, they
Is that
pay
Winston-
taxes, they come to our side.
is that Winston Churchill? If you're liberal when you're young and conservative when you're older.
Because you own property.
That's
It's right out of John Locke.
Yeah.
When you get older, you have property, you want to protect it, you become more conservative.
but I do want to change the subject a little bit, if it's okay.
Well, are we ready for this? Because we still have to discuss the AG and the gubernatorial
Okay,
race.
yeah. I'll let you know.
So we're done with the senators. Let's
I-
talk about
I-
the AG.
On the senator side, we have a really good slate. I think we have a chance of winning majority in the upcoming election.
What are you talking
It's
about?
all gonna come out.
What is he drinking?
I don't know what's
It's-
in there.
It's all gonna come out on how the campaigns are run and how
Yeah.
the individuals come out. And I think that the main issues, you have senatorial candidates on the Republican side that are very strong on specific issues, and they're advocating on those, and they're working. And I think that you're going to see change in the way that senators campaign. And I'm letting you know there's a good chance that we might surprise people here. Incumbents, we're almost at a wash at this stage because everybody wanted to run for governor. So it's going to be interesting in how all these new candidates come in. Strong candidates on both sides. I won't give it any other way, but,
Well, the
but it's going
Democrats
to be
have been
competitive.
on a streak with the legislature, so
Yeah.
we'll see. AG race. Leaving Camacho, was that surprising to you guys?
No.
No surprise there.
And Doug was not a surprise either.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, former office holder, and he stood up the office, which is a hard job.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think he gets proper credit for standing up that office, because he literally had to go through the growing pains of
Right.
establishing it as an independent office, which is really, really, really tough. And then, of course, you know, the subsequent AGs built on that, and so now we've had 3 after the original AGs. We've had.
So you're saying Doug wasn't surprised that he made it?
I wasn't surprised that he made it, because
Right.
I mean, people were very aware that he's held the office before. He held it honorably. It was not an easy job being the first AG. It was
Right.
tough, because
Yeah.
you can't help but to make people mad at you when you're trying to. It's like growing pains. You're trying to elbow your way to the table and assert your authority. It's tough.
And it's a good contest coming up. You're going to have a young individual,
Lots of good contracts.
trying to make a mark for himself. First electoral run, the political run that he's at, and a very established candidate that has a large track record and is also very well known. So it'll be interesting to see how the electorate ends up looking at it. I think that we were 7 pundits or 8 pundits on election night, and we all had both of them coming in as
Yeah.
the number 1, number 2.
Yeah.
But to Gary Gumatata's, credit, unfortunately, only 2 can advance.
Right,
And
sure.
I think Gary really put up a good,
And it was close.
gave it a good
It was
go.
pretty close.
Yeah,
I think that-
he really did. I mean, he was saying certain things that that the voters wanted to hear. You grab a gun, you go to jail.
Right,
And he's
right,
been
right,
very
yeah.
clear about that.
That
so-
was all that really stuck out, though, from his campaign.
Yeah.
To me, that's
Yeah.
all I remember.
I've worked with Levin on occasion, wonderful gentleman, smart, and I've worked also with former Attorney General Moylan. Both, I like both of them, and so we'll see where the public goes on it. It's going to be kind of fun. They are very different, though. So
That's what I think is going to make this exciting.
yeah, and I'm not going to bet lunch anymore.
I'm looking
breakfast.
forward to the debates on those. So it'll be
Oh yeah, it'll be
nice to
great.
see the
Very good
look at
debates
that.
between
I
those.
think there was only
Yeah.
one forum, right? The whole AG race. That was
And
No,
the
there
Guam
was-
Bar did
Yeah,
an
Guam
excellent
Bar
job.
had a
They
form.
did an
Then the
excellent
Rotary
forum.
had a form
I
that
had a-
we
I saw a
we had
Rotary
them
one.
on.
Okay.
And it was interesting because Levin, instead of running from his relative lack of experience, he embraced it and he used it and explained it in a way that would entice people to make like his lack of experience a reason to vote
Yeah.
for him.
Bill Clinton was the Attorney General for Arkansas right when he was 30 years old. And so we've had examples of young Attorneys General in the United States. It's actually one of the younger singular types of offices. Among the singular offices like governor or lieutenant governor, or whatever, the Attorneys Generals tend to be a little bit younger, on the younger side of those that make that kind of office. So
Gubernatorial race. Are we even going to talk about public order? I feel like that was a no-brainer.
Yes, yeah. We don't need to talk about that.
only that Speaker BJ didn't campaign
Congratulations
at all.
on winning.
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations.
No, he didn't need to
and
campaign.
well, he did, and I don't know he did. I think he did ask people for his vote, but I have, and I guess it's very, very blatantly and openly. There are few people among our elected leaders that I respect more than BJ Cruz. He's just, if you know him and you can see where his heart is, 100%. You know, he always
I concur.
and
It's
he
very honorable.
absolutely stands up
Yeah.
for what he believes in, and I think anybody who knows him knows that. And so I think he earned that position as public auditor.
Yeah. I think you said few and far between, but I put Madame Bordallo
Oh, absolutely.
in that
Absolutely.
same track. It's people that are doing this not because they need the job or this is something that they have to do. It's people that are doing it because they really and genuinely feel that they're doing it's
I
their
gotta
duty to do
disagree.
something.
I feel like BJ's kind of pervy and everybody knows it, but no one wants to say it.
Maybe, but
Yeah.
here's the thing. I as far as his public office and serving the people, I think he's
Right.
been 100%.
And he's willing to cross party lines when he was on issues. If he felt something was
Willing to
wrong.
cross a lot of lines.
All right, let's go on
Yeah.
to the gubernatorial. Recount, no recount?
Well,
Should
let's
there
talk
be a
about the
recount?
race first of all. What do you guys think of the campaigns these guys run? I keep saying I felt like Gutierrez ran a pretty strong campaign. I mean,
He killed the Filipino community of
Yeah.
Guam.
Governor Gutierrez did very well. This
it was like he was a
Maybe
new
they all-
Gutierrez
they
almost.
all-
Do you think
they all
he
relatively
still
did,
would
I
have
mean-
killed it if Dennis showed up and
Yes.
Frank showed up?
Yeah.
No, he was on his game that night.
Yeah.
I wish more people could have seen that. It was incredible.
Yeah.
You could
He
feel
wished
it.
more people could have seen it too because he was like, hey, why aren't you guys
No, I
playing
mean
that?
you could feel he knew exactly. And one thing, I don't care who the next governor is. I don't care, Democrat or Republican. They should talk to Governor Gutierrez and find out how to implement some of the
Well,
things
Lou's
he was
already
talking about.
reached out to him, and they're in conversations. And
What does that mean though? Does that mean that Gutierrez is going to come over and
Well,
are we going to see him endorse Lou?
what that means is that she's showing respect and deference to all of them,
Right.
recognizing that all of them have to. Like I said, they started with 4. They need to end with 4 in order to win Adlu.
Why
Yeah.
didn't we see any concession speeches? Was it
Because
just not
of-
necessary? Or?
Well, because everything is still kind of with the request to have a recount, so maybe technically it's still
Oh, I mean,
hasn't been.
Dennis
So-
and
Wow.
Well, Dennis sent
So
out a
Carl
statement today.
oh.
One thing I just want to mention, I don't get to ever say this because of the way that election cycles run. I hope one day people will find out what happened with the Korean airline crash and all the good work that Governor Gutierrez did there on the ground with his cell phone. He went right down to that site right away
I was
and did amazing work. And one day I hope he'll get proper credit for that. I know he's been recognized. Some people criticize him. Jeff Evans criticized him, whatever. But no, he did outstanding work, and he was a true hero and a leader on that day.
I think you'll
And-
continue to see all 3 of them that didn't make the primary play a very prominent, important role going forward.
What about
I-
Rodriguez?
I-
Okay, go ahead.
I do have to say, and I said it on election night. I think that one of the biggest winners that night was former Governor Carl Gutierrez, because he revived his campaign. There
Yeah.
was an expectation on the Democratic side that he was going to way underperform, and he
An
ran.
expectation on our side, we had no expectations like that. I'll
And-
just keep calling you out every time you try to make our party
Yeah.
look like we are not united or
And-
not standing up for
You're
each
not
other.
united, though.
There was no expectation on anybody's side that he was going to
Yeah.
bomb.
Well, it
Maybe-
just happens that all my Democratic
You gotta watch
friends-
out for him.
You need to watch
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
I said I gotta watch out for
The
him.
plethora,
When's
the
Juan
pleth-
Carlos going to be on?
the plethora of Democratic friends that I do have, they were all saying, "Oh, Lou Rodriguez," and
See
oh
how they
God,
participate in our
and
democratic
the,
race?
It was
and
juicy.
then at the end of the day, Carl didn't make any hiccups, any mistake. He ran a good campaign. He let the other 3 guys fight with each other. He went to his base and moved. His base is still solid. It's still there. It went for him, and now whoever ends up winning after the recall, after the
Recall.
Recount?
the recount,
Your guys, are you thinking
After
he's
the-
going to be recalled?
after the recount, whoever ends up winning after the recount is gonna now have to come into former Governor Carl and say, "Hey, how can I get those votes to me?"
I said that Lou's
But she's
already
already doing
talking
it.
to him. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
No, we've
good
been saying
advice.
that all. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been saying that this campaign for Gutierrez has been different in that, he has
Yeah.
his base, but he had new support.
He did.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it was like getting over his back trouble, but he just seemed fresher. He seemed to be able to his command of his ideas was just a lot better.
Two other quick points. Dennis Rodriguez, his wonderful work with the medical and particularly victims of cancer. He does that very quietly. But also, I think that Senator Frank Uggan, I think he would have gotten more votes if he'd played up his military record and played up his service record, and he didn't do that really. And I think he readily could have, and he honorably served certainly the United States and certainly our in his military role. And I think
but the night of the election, when Senator Liu gave her speech thanking everybody, she was very clear that the Liu and Josh campaign continues to welcome all those that want to be part of this movement. I think what Joshua Tenorio also said that night is resonating with a lot of the people, where he says, just come over. Come over, there's a place for all of you. Continue to wear your own political, if you're Uggan Limtiaco or Rodriguez Cruz or Gutierrez Berdalio, come over, wear your shirts. Wear your shirts. So it's just kind of like...
Yeah, that sounds like what we're saying.
It's kind of what Ray was saying to Dennis.
When he went over there on the night of the primary.
Let's talk about the Rodriguez Cruz campaign.
Right.
Yeah.
Such promise at the beginning.
Right. Best platform of any Democratic candidate.
If
well written, articulated. Couldn't
Also
get
the
a
most controversial,
couldn't
too.
get a soundbite out
You
of it.
haven't read other platforms.
I have.
No, but then, and I agree. I mean, just outside looking in, he did say some very concrete things about,
Yeah.
I'm streamlining into this many agencies, eliminating the deputy directors, which is something the legislature adopted for the budget. So, I mean, I feel like he had a lot of courageous ideas, like turn Government House into a rehab center. So I see what you're saying. I mean, his platform definitely stuck out.
I mean, he put up a really good fight, and kudos and to him and to Colonel Cruz. Even at the gubernatorial debates, and Dennis and I are really good friends, right? So I'm watching him up there, and he's holding his own. He's at least showing up, and he's participating in those gubernatorial debates with Carl Gutierrez, who always does well in those kinds of forums, and Senator Liu, who always answers the questions, and and also Senator Uggan as well, who's very familiar in those kinds of settings. And so he made his intentions known that he's running for governor. He showed up, and to the very end,
You got to do more than show up, though.
He fought the good fight.
If Gutierrez and Rodriguez had ran together, they would have won. My opinion.
What went wrong, though, with that campaign, that Rodriguez Cruz campaign?
Well, a lot of things, and they were able to recover from some of them. I think the running mate issue was a bad call. I think that the running mate, Colonel Cruz, should have said, "I'm all in or not," right? And he failed to do that. And then they had a series of stumbles related to that. And then there was all these the conspiracy stuff that came out that really it became more about that stuff than the actual Rodriguez campaign. It was kind of not hijacked. Hijack's the wrong word, but
I
it was
think
kind
hijack's
of
the right word.
it was kind of put into the twilight zone a little bit.
Yeah.
And by the way, Lieutenant Governor Ray Tenorio ran an excellent campaign also, and I've known him for many years, and I think that he's also a very capable
Well, he's
leader.
very aggressive, and no one should take him for granted. That he's certainly formidable in a sense that he's aggressive. That night when he walked over and Senator Ada walked over to the Rodriguez Cruz camp.
That I felt was too aggressive.
Well,
I felt like it was too early in the night, and
That's what I
obviously
meant.
emotions were running high. And
yeah, like as opposed to just letting them be together as a family to sort out what their position is. But I remember commenting that night that when I heard that they did that, I mean, I have enough, a lot of trust and faith that the Rodriguez Cruz camp will wait to see who the standard bearer is for the Democratic Party and recognize that there's also a place for all of them.
I thought it was-
These people are friends outside of politics.
Uh-huh.
They came with their wives.
Yeah.
It wasn't,
Sure,
let me go over there on my own and
To
talk
wish
to you.
them well. I said that's fine.
And
You're
I
gonna
saw the
wish them
video.
well.
And that's okay. What for me is, it wasn't Rodriguez who got upset. And that's was the problem with their entire campaign.
it was all about Troy Torres.
It was all about, you mentioned Rodriguez
What a
campaign
diva.
to anybody, and the first thing in their mind was Troy not the position on the hospital and fixing that issue, not the position on how to balance the budget. They all wanted to talk about this one issue. And even to the last day, you know, and that's problematic, and it's sad, you know. He was a great candidate. He had a great platform, but his campaign, I never quite got in sync to move forward.
And just to be fair, I did see the raw footage of what happened, because I know when we were on here, we were all like, what happened? There was some kind of verbal altercation. But when I watched the video that morning, it was Ray, he crossed the street with Tony and their wives. They saw Lena, who was sitting at the bottom or outside with everybody, and they shook hands, they hugged, and, you know, they just wanted to say goodnight. It's been a long night. And then Lena was with Tony's wife, and they walked inside together. And, you know, of course, Dennis was surprised when he saw Ray, like, what are you doing here?
What are you doing?
And again, their campaign headquarters are
right
across the street from each other.
Right.
It's not like he went across town and, you know.
Yeah, it was only when
Troy came out.
yeah.
But we haven't talked about Ogun's campaign, and I think he ran a different campaign, a lot more into the internet and using social media on it, and it turned out to be very effective, compared to the old brick and mortar and village leader and
I
organization.
know he did a lot of canvassing too, so I feel like it was a balance of, you know, I'd see him in the legislature, oh, what are you doing this weekend? And he would park and canvass.
Yeah.
And then walk back.
I think he also knew how to
doors.
use earned media. During the budget session, he was taking smart positions on all of the issues.
Even with the
having
Chamorro
press
Land Trust
conferences
controversies.
One other thing of all of the running mates among the Democrats, you know, other than certainly Senator Liu, which is who prevailed, but among the other three, certainly Alicia Limtiaco, extremely capable. I worked with her at the university full time for about 4 years. Wonderful lady, knows very, very precise, and is able to do a lot of neat things. And so,
and I think one of the things that they could have done better is have Alicia. I mean, she didn't really come out of her shell until halfway down the stretch. And you know, I remember in the beginning, a lot of people were wondering about her. I mean, what's her personality? And it turned out she had a pretty engaging personality, but it was almost too little, too late. And you're right. I felt like when you compare just the lieutenant governor candidates, she did have one of the best track records.
One other thing, you had like a little video of that song you were dancing to. I forget what the name.
Kiki.
Yeah. She did the best Kiki dance also.
So,
I think Regine did that.
Regine, okay.
So when I look at her their campaign, 260 vote, it's going to keep you awake for the rest of your life. What could you have done different? And for me, the two mistakes. One was I agree. I think Alicia should have come out a lot earlier, because when you compare it to the other lieutenant governor candidates that the Democrats were running, she was way and above a more charismatic personality and a lot of story. Former attorney general, former U.S. attorney, somebody that had fought corruption and other issues that are there in the forefront. But number two, and for me the biggest surprise to me, was at the self-determination debate, where they came in, they had all this fanfare about their podium and hitting it, and then when they started, everybody else had the logo of their campaign, and you put it out, it says, "I'm one vote for independence." And for a candidate that was known to work in the reserves, and to be very active with the military, I think it was something that surprised people. And when you look at those votes, who knows how many of those 260
I think we're
votes
also
were there.
forgetting the attacks. Is the other thing. I mean, no other candidate was under such a barrage of negative attacks.
Well, not true. Lou and Josh were under attack as well. I mean, but there was Ken Leon Guerrero, it was Andre Bainen's group, it was these different people
They had attack ads against Lou and Josh?
Must not have been out there as much.
No, they were
Which
equally. Which one?
Yeah, what were they about?
I don't want to remind the viewers what those ads were, but
I think it's safe to say Frank was the most attacked
But
candidate.
so there's one key thing that I wish we can always get people to look back to. Who doesn't at the legislature? Who doesn't give their budget and have things done with it. Everybody does it. Everybody hires their relatives and stuff like that.
Right.
It's so commonplace. I think if that was pointed out, that this is actually a long-standing tradition, it would have probably, oh yeah, that's what the issue is. And it's called hanging a lantern on the issue.
Yeah.
And I think that Senator Uggan should have hung a lantern on it and say, look, this is a common practice, and left it at that.
But there was that. There was Frank Uggan hates Filipinos. There
I-
was,
you
Frank
know what?
Uggan's a career politician. There were just
Yeah.
so many.
Ethics complaints.
I mean, how do you respond to all of them? I mean,
You know, we have
there's no
such a
way.
wonderful community, and I love it that we have a very diverse community, and we're blessed to live in the diverse community that we live in, and to
Amen.
have the tolerance that we have. This is a beautiful community to raise a child in.
And
I just wanted to put this out there because somebody was asking about Selva Balta. No recognition to Selva Balta, who garnered more votes than you mentioned, Rory. Being
Well, I didn't even mention
Yeah.
Sababata. So good for Sababata
Yeah.
also.
basically.
And,
Very
and,
well.
and,
He
and
did
good,
very well on the
and good
election.
for all the candidates. It's
Yeah.
tough to run
Yeah.
for
Does that
office.
cover
I'm not
everybody?
sure why.
You know,
Yeah.
yes.
You see,
Yeah.
Sababata,
So,
you know, he has a.
He wants you to
He
give a
would
shout
he
out
would
to
make a great compliment to the legislature. He really will. His background, he believes in like vocational training
Yeah,
and
he's on that board.
education. System. Yeah, see, he'll be good.
so what about
Just wanted to make sure.
I'm,
Lou and
I'm
Josh.
making
You
sure.
saw
I
that.
What was
let's
that?
talk about we've talked about all the gubernatorial teams. Lou and Josh.
I think that Lou and Josh are going to keep on rolling, and it's going to be Ray versus Lou and Josh. It's going to be a great election. This is an exciting election season. I don't care how people feel about it. Everybody knows they love this kind of drama.
Dr.
it's-
Ron,
yes.
it's going to be Ray versus Lou and Josh, Gutierrez Bordalio, Aguilitiaco.
Oh, there you go.
And,
And who's
Rodriguez-
going to be on
that'll
whose
be
and
side?
Rodriguez
Rory.
Cruz, so you have the four of them versus Ray, and
So-
that's how we're going to win that ad loop.
So for me, again, 260 vote. Lou and Josh, I'm sure, went to church the next day.
It's not a mandate, really.
Thank God.
Yeah.
And we're very excited. You have to understand that they 52% of the voters participated in the election, and the most they were able to garner after one of the most expensive primary process still.
Well, I could
Was
tell
a
you
little
from,
bit about
from
half.
the Lou and Josh campaign, no one is celebrating, including Lou and Josh. They recognize that this was a very, very hard felt fight to get the party's nominee, but then they're doing everything right by reaching out. Right, you know,
Right.
I've been in elections where we've won. I've been in elections where I lost personally. It feels good to win, but it also doesn't feel good when you don't make it. It hurts.
Right.
There's a
Right.
lot of people that put their blood, sweat, and tears, and so Lou and Josh aren't coming from the perspective we won, yay,
Right, right.
this is going to happen. They're coming from the perspective to express empathy and compassion and concern for those who were part of campaigns that didn't make this last
And I
primary,
think
saying,
that
come
it's-
home, come with us, you have a place for us.
It's
And you don't
incumbent
even
for
have to
them.
change your identity, wear
Yeah.
your own
Right,
campaign
right,
shirt,
right.
keep your colors, but let's do this together.
Very
And that's going to
thank you
be
for the-
indicative of the kind of administration I believe that she'll have as governor and
But I think she
lieutenant
has
governor.
to. If you look at, let's just, outside looking in.
Well,
again,
having to
here's
versus
a
wanting
team
to are
that-
two different things. She wants to.
No.
She wants to. She's
But
doing
let's just
it.
look at the numbers, right? I mean, they had to spend more than all the other teams combined. There wasn't a mandate.
Well, the loss is
So she's going to have to
polarity,
get
it's just by
those.
one vote.
those
They
I
had,
mean,
if
the
they had-
Democrats
if they
need that
had-
unity.
No. Mandate is 50 plus one.
No,
that's what he's
that-
saying. Not
but
about
that-
the recount. We're
Not
gonna
a
go there
commanding
now.
margin.
But
of
that
victory.
mandate
Right.
happens in the general election,
Right, yeah.
right? So
No, I'm
you're-
using the
yeah.
word in terms of like a commanding.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they smoked the competition.
and they never said that they
Yeah.
did.
No,
They-
but
they
I'm just
never
saying
said
that that's
they
why
did.
the unity is so important to the Democrats because mathematically, I mean, if you get Rodriguez Cruz or Gutierrez Bordalio,
And we want to
jumping
continue to
over
make
Ray.
the Republicans feel like there's a better choice on the Democrat side.
So,
And
so
the
based on the
Republicans are a
results, is there
better
supposed to be a recount or not?
Let's talk about
An
this 'cause
automatic
this
recount?
is yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yes.
But Maria just said that
I-
there's not an automatic recount.
So I disagree with the position that the election commission is taking, and I've I want to look at the legal opinion that they're basing their decision on, and they said that the council is working on it and it should be ready by Thursday. So I guess it's going to be a brand new ruling or determination by the commission. But basically, let's look at what's the intent of a recount. We do our elections, we used to do it by hand, and there was a margin of error when you did it by hand. We went to computers, and there's a margin of error when you do it by computers. So when you have an election for an office, and the margin of error is very little, you want to rerun those ballots just to make sure that there wasn't a mistake. Now, the Election Commission has decided not to run that percentage based on the election itself. So gubernatorial election, 52,000 people, let's say 25,000 people voted on that election. The margin of error is less than 2% of everybody that participated in the election. The Election Commission is saying, we're not going to look at it that way. We're going to look at the margin of errors of the votes that the top candidate got. And based on that, it's 3%. I think that's a mistake because the margin of error of the ballots is wrong. If the intent and the purpose was, if there's a margin of error for a race less than 2%, you should rerun those ballots. And I think that that's what you do.
I agree. I just think for the sake of democracy, I don't see what the big deal is. I mean, if we rerun it, Lou and Josh still win. I don't even think that a recount will show that Ogunlumtiaco won. I'm not sure. I just feel like, it's incumbent upon the Election Commission to kind of bring closure to this.
Yeah. And let me tell you, I do not believe it will make a difference in this election because I agree there's not enough votes. It would be like almost every single vote would have to go into one party, into one team to make a difference. So it's not about that. For me, it's a precedent because if their interpretation survives, every time that you have more than 2 individuals running for governor, you will not have a re-elect. They will not. It will be almost impossible to end up going to a re-election.
And then you look at 2010, Calvo Tenorio and Gutierrez Ugun, 500 vote difference. The election, I mean, it was a general election, but they did a recount.
Yeah, and I'll give one more thing. We went all the way to Supreme Court in Guam to determine 50 plus 1 for the gubernatorial race, same race. And the Supreme Court of the United States ended up saying, you got to count all the votes, right? You got to count all the votes, and to get to that 50 plus 1. So it is surprising that then now you're going to reach a decision that for the primary, we do not need to count all the votes. We only need to count the votes for one candidate. Now, keep in mind, I'm the Republican representative here. I got no dog in this fight. It's like whoever wants to go. But as an attorney and someone that's concerned about the precedent, it bothers me, the interpretation. Having said that, I am almost 100% sure that on Thursday, the Election Commission is going to vote for doing the recount.
There's no saying in politics, you run unopposed or you run scared. And I'll tell you, both of these sides are going to have to run scared until end of November. I mean, until the end of the election in November. That's the reality. This is going to be a tough race from now on. You guys got to bind everybody together, and you guys got to try to pull those others into your orbit, and it's going to be very, very interesting.
We're bonding more.
Yeah, maybe next time y'all should sit next to each other so I'm not in the middle. I don't like being in the middle. I don't like being right here in the middle. Maybe I'll sit over there.
The matter is before the Guam Election Commission, and it's their decision. Lou and Josh issued a statement saying that basically the fact that every vote should be counted, right? But from my political perspective, I think that Senator Ugun and Attorney General Limtiaco had no choice but to request for a recount, because they have to show their supporters that they're doing everything within what they believe are the parameters of law to make sure that this election was won or not won on those kinds of bases. And so I think that's what had to be done for the Ogunlumtiaco supporters, and then now the matter is before the Guam Election Commission to decide.
I just think that close, might as well. What's the harm?
260.
Yeah. Dr. McNinch?
You have the machinery. We pay all this money for the machinery. Use it. Why do we have a tool if we're not going to use it? It's not supposed to be in a glass case on a shelf. We got the machine. Just spend the 20 cents on electricity and run it back through again. Who cares?
I think it's interesting because in researching this for a story I did today, I came across a quote from Joe Mesa, who was a longtime member of the Guam Election Commission, and he said that it is a standing policy that the GEC board asks for a recount of elections that come within a 2% margin of victory, not difference in votes, but that this policy wasn't mandated. So I think it's interesting that you would have someone who was with the election commission as long as Joe Mesa, as someone that Maria Pangilinan has told me that she kind of defers to when she has questions about GEC issues because of his institutional knowledge. You have him saying in these media reports that, hey, it's our policy to recount anything that's close, and yet now you have the GEC.
Sorry. I'm sorry, Chris.
Yeah, you have, now she's saying there's 3%. There's some kind of like.
Yeah. Well, she has to live with whatever the counsel for the election commission is letting her know what the position is. I think if she had her if there was if it was her decision, she obviously would run it. It's just counsel saying this is how we should interpret the statute. I just think that that's not the correct interpretation of the statute. At the very least, not what the legislature intended when they passed the law.
So maybe you should represent Ogun Liptiaco.
Though, my opinion at the primary, if either party wants a recount, they should just recount it if the party asks.
Yeah.
It shouldn't even have to be a percentage-wise, just to make sure.
Right.
And it ends all the conspiracy theories people come up with and junk
I
like
think
that.
that's the issue is accountability.
Yeah.
Let's talk about.
Can I bring a new issue because this brings something for me which is interesting because there were 900 ballots that were crossover ballots that were overvotes, right? And this overvote issue it's been bothering me for a while. And I've worked in different jurisdictions, and the main intent and where you give the discretion to the election commission is to find out what the intent of the voter was. And if you can identify the intent of the voter, you should count that vote. And present law don't allow it, but I really think that we should look at saying, look, if somebody overvoted in one section, the legislative section or the executive section, by all means, cancel that part of the vote. But if you can identify the intent of that voter for the other elections that were in that same ballot, take the time and count it. Every year I keep hearing how many people overvoted and their votes were canceled or eliminated, and it's sad. That person went to the booth and took the time to go into it, and I wish that someone would come up with a piece of legislation sort of saying, look at it, and if they overvoted on the senatorial side, which is normally where they do, they thought they voted 15 and they voted 16. At least count their vote on the general and maybe the attorney general, whatever other votes.
Or how about we just don't let people who don't know the difference between 15 and 16 vote?
I hope we can reform the primary overall and stop this artificial, you have to vote on one side or the other and just vote for whoever you want.
Is the overvote the indeterminate? Wait, or are you talking about crossover?
Yeah, no, overvote is when you vote for, let's say you vote for both candidates.
Oh,
Both candidates.
I'm trying to find it
Or
on
16 senatorial candidates.
Oh, here it is, yeah.
15,
Or you vote on both sides.
Right.
You vote for one of each.
No,
Let's
you're
fast
talking
forward,
about
let's-
spoilage.
Right,
That one
right.
clearly you cannot
Right.
count because they're voting for a Republican government.
Yeah, there was
Democrat.
1,200.
But he's talking about the overvote.
I know
Overvotes.
that. But I want to see the whole process reformed.
1,200 in the Democrat.
Yeah, so people that voted and made a mistake in the senatorial race, but
360
voted correctly in the gubernatorial race, and their
Yeah.
gubernatorial vote got eliminated. And same in the congressional race. So I think let's look at it and really do it. It doesn't take that much time to do it by the machines. We have the technology for it. All we need to do is have the change in the legislation.
Let's fast forward a little bit past this recount. Let's say we do a recount, whatever, Lou and Josh's victory holds. Lou and Josh versus Tenorio Ada. You're right, that's going to be a great election. What do you feel each team has to do to win in November?
Don't sleep. Stay up and work. No, I think it's make sure that they get their message to the electorate. And we have a very interesting electorate, and Dr. McNinch brought this up. It's diversity. It's Filipino, it's Pacific Island, it's Micronesian, it's Chamorro, it's Carolinian, it's Korean, Japanese, you know, and you need to figure out Chinese. Let me not get that Chinese board to tell me, hey, you forgot about us. And in there you got the mainland and the Taiwanese. It's talking to them, letting them to know the candidate for who they really are. Get to know Ray, get to know Tony. And as they do that, they continue to do that because they've been doing it now for all this period. I think that you're going to really see the candidate getting ahead and getting the support they need to win the general election. Lou is a formidable candidate. You know, financially, no one's going to beat a bank. You know, so we know that this is going to be. Ray is not a wealthy guy. Everybody knows he's come out on his own, adopted by a Chamorro family, grew up all these years on his own doing public service as a police officer and as a senator.
Money,
He's a formidable fundraiser.
Yeah.
I've seen all the campaign finance stuff, and I think if anybody can get money, maybe not dollar for dollar to compete with Lou and Josh,
And you know,
Yeah.
Lou also.
they've got a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't think he can do a $5,000.
No, listen,
check.
No.
but Lou.
But he's got a pack that's supporting him.
$500,000.
So he talked about Ray's upbringing, being a foster child, and
Yes.
Lou's upbringing also. Came from humble beginnings.
Mhm.
I mean, her dad. She grew up in a 2-bedroom tin and wooden house, and she knows what those kinds of struggles are, despite the position that she's in now. And that's, I think, what the Lou and Josh camp did successfully is to portray that kind of, despite the kinds of things that they try to portray her, is she's a banker, she has a lot of money.
She is a banker.
She's a banker. She has a lot of money.
She has a lot of money, but she also has a really big heart and compassion, and she recognizes the everyday struggle she does, and that's the kind of governor that she'll be, to reach out and make sure that those kinds of problems are taken care of, and to just want to better the lives of everyone who calls Guam home. You know, that's and that's.
And I think your question was, what will the candidates have to do? And I think that's what both candidates are going to try to get the people to meet them and to interact with them and get to know them. You know, I think the more debates, the better to get that into
and then
going
you
on the
could clearly
process.
see the contrast. She's still a registered nurse. She can talk about her time in the legislature and the laws that she passed, but outside of that, what they're going to stay really focused on is reaching out to everyone in the different camps and making sure that there's going to be, you know, a coming together and moving forward together. And you can keep saying,
Let me ask you this
we started with 4, we'll end with 4.
I keep seeing you trying to say she's going to focus on uniting the Democratic Party the whole way. I'm sure, you know, that she's going to try to reach out also, try to figure out how to move forward
And
past
not only reach out to bring Democrats together, but also continue to attract the Republicans who want some other choice, or independents who are not affiliated with any political party.
The formula is actually fairly simple, running for singular office. Singular offices in particular. Legislative also similar. Voters on Guam need to feel a sense of intimacy with the candidates. That is, they personally feel a connection, they know them, or they have good friends or family members who feel they know them, and that sense of closeness then translates into people talking about them in good terms, which then brings in the numbers for get themselves elected. Yeah. It's a functional process, and if candidates take it for granted, then they lose the election. They have to reinforce. They have to. There's this old saw in politics called "What have you done for me lately?" where a politician does all these good things over the years, and then in the end, the person asks them after they've done all these good things. It's from Alvin Barkley. What have you done for me lately? That's what they always ask you. In Guam, people have to feel that the leaders have done something for them.
Let me ask you this one. How important is it for, I mean, obviously Lieutenant Governor Tenorio has the power of the incumbency, but, you know, that's a double-edged sword, especially with, you know, everything that we're going through now. I mean, not just with the budget and with the, you know, different problems facing the government, but with everyone kind of being on their best behavior. So if I'm, you know, running the Bota campaign, I say sit everyone down, no mess-ups. I mean, I feel like any small mistake, incident, you know, gun grab or what have you, I mean, could really just demolish. I feel like the campaign is kind of on thin ice.
Yeah.
So how important is it down the stretch for Lieutenant Governor to keep moving forward without having all that baggage catching up with him?
I think that Lieutenant Governor Tenorio's campaign and the voter campaign would probably sit down everybody they have and say, you can't take this election for granted. This is going to be a tough election. We're definitely going to be outspent. We can't compete dollar for dollar. With this candidate, we need to be smart, and we're going to have to do it the whole way. And it's a ground route. It's a ground game, and it's going to be doing it personally. I want to add what Dr. McNinch mentioned, because this
Please
is
call me Ron.
right. And it's
He likes you when he says call him Ron.
so it is true. People will vote for the person they know and they feel that you are, and you can't win by surrogates. Hillary Clinton thought she could. She brought JC, she brought Beyonce, and she gave you every other reason to vote for her.
Well, she won the popular vote.
Except coming over.
She won the popular vote. But the Electoral College was designed so that Trump is president.
I will give you your turn. Don't worry about it.
But you just keep saying all kinds of stuff that I just can't keep quiet.
but at the end of the day, she didn't really reach the masses. You end up looking at 2 weeks in the middle at the end of the campaign and taking a hiatus on it, and that is not going to work. If Lou's going to really go at it, and she's going to be going with against Ray, she will also be doing the same thing. She's going to have to be going out to every village and walking with every person and meeting them from Yigo to Cocos Island. You know, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a great race. I think that both candidates are smart and they're articulate, and they're going to go at it. I feel on the conservative side and on the Republican side, I'm very excited and very happy with the candidate I have, and I am sure that people will get to know the real Ray Tenorio in the coming months. And
well, you know, he's correct in the sense that it's that door-to-door, one-on-one type campaigning, and that's what Lou and Josh did in the primary election. They canvassed a lot, you know, and so they've also had a very good ground game. On the day of the election, they, you know, with the poll watchers, shared responsibilities with Gutierrez Bordallo. The other camps didn't really have the people to man those kinds of stations. So I mean, that what I saw is that she and Josh had a really strong village organization, a ground game. There was village meetings, sometimes 3 times a week. Those kinds of outreach efforts, and so everything that you're saying, I agree in terms of what she has to do. I agree she's doing it already, and she'll continue to do that.
Yeah, but I have to say, after this election, if I'm in her team, we go in and I'm worried. I'm worried because I did everything I was supposed to do, and I fought it to the end, and I outspent everybody 3-1, and I barely won in my party. But now I'm going to go to the general.
Sorry if I keep interrupting you, but if she keeps doing those things that you're saying she should do, that's exactly what caused the win in the primary. You know, I mean, just because you're saying she should have won bigger with all the, you know, but Senator Uggan was very formidable. He was a very good grounds game guy. He's all over the place. Attorney General Alicia Limchaco, she's a great pick. So just on that basis alone, but
I stand corrected. Don't change anything. Just keep doing the same thing you did. Please.
I'm not going to get advice from a Republican operative.
Ron?
I hope our pundits can take a unity pledge and basically we should make an agreement that, guess what, yesterday was yesterday, the election's over, once it's finally certified, we've got to move on, people. We've got to move on.
Today is today, though.
Today's today.
Yeah.
It still is today, but we got to move on. And when we move on, we got to move forward.
You know what I think this election's going to come down to, Lou and Josh versus Ray Tenorio? I think it's going to come down to who really wants it more.
Yeah.
Lou, I mean, and talking with people who know Lou, this is her life's work right here. This is the goal that she has set for herself. Mm-hmm. This is the last thing on her bucket list, so to speak. And I think she's shown that she's willing to put in $500,000 of her own money. I mean, that's somebody who wants to win.
Oh.
And I think it's going to be interesting because for a change, the Republicans aren't going to be the so-called big money team. And
Yeah.
you guys are going to be able to. I mean, obviously, you can see from what he's saying tonight that they do plan on playing off that. Oh, lose a banker. Oh, she's rich. You know what I mean? Which is definitely different coming from Republicans. Usually, it's a Democrat saying that about
but I'll go on 2 points. And my first point, it will go back to McNinch. I'm willing to do a unity pledge, no matter who our next governor is. We should all pledge to support and help that individual because this is one island, and we're going to have to be united in it. We're facing major issues with a lot of problems starting and bigger ones in the horizons. And split, it's going to be really hard to do something. And the Democrats and the Republican Party will have to unite to make sure that we pass this hump and get to
But they
more
never do.
prosperity.
That's the thing. They never do unite. And you saw, you know, I mean, that, yeah, I said it was early, but I mean, like Ray Tenorio is very aggressive. He was across the street at the, you know, Democratic headquarters.
It's very
So I really
friendly.
think the real battle is going to be between Lou trying to scoop up the Democrats who are disaffected and Ray trying to get them. So it's going to come down to promises. We'll hire your guy here, you know what I mean? So whoever can win most of those Democrats.
But in our own primary race, we had 4 teams, and that, you know, represents that there's a huge
Right.
desire for change, and
Yeah.
that's why these people came out to run. With 4 different teams, we knew all along that it was going to be a lot of ballots that had to be counted, but because of, you know, the split 4 ways, I mean, it was a really, really tough fight for all 4 of them.
Yeah.
I'm sure in their own calculations, in their own mind, maybe one team felt that because 4 people are running, they may have the edge.
Yeah.
But we just had to do whatever we can within whatever resources available to get those messages out and reach out on a one-to-one basis with all the voters.
Yeah,
And it worked.
I disagree. I actually think that at the general election, the non-political junkies are going to look at issues and where they stand in the future of Guam.
And Lou and Josh will still be a better choice for that.
And what they feel is
But do
the
they
right-
have tuition-free college?
No, but let me look. They're going to look at difference. Lou supports recreational marijuana as one of her economic principles for the future of this island, and as a tourism base of marijuana tourism, and she stated it in a number of occasions. I'm an immigration attorney. You know that doesn't work. You know, you're not allowed to travel to smoke marijuana in a different jurisdiction, and if you're an immigrant, a legal immigrant, even here, if you smoke marijuana and you're caught with it, it's a 10-year ban. Even if you're a permanent resident, you're automatically banned out of the country. So it's interesting to see that's where we're going. Well, some families will say, well, I don't want my children growing in a place that has recreational marijuana and is looking at all these tourists coming here to get high. It might produce money, but is that the quality of a life that I want? You
Well,
know?
a lot of people will disagree with you respectfully because
I understand.
recreational medical marijuana should have already been implemented.
Medical
but-
marijuana is a different
I
animal.
know, but I'm saying that now with recreational adult use marijuana to regulate it the way you use alcohol and tobacco,
I agree
I mean,
with
there's a lot of support
Rory
for
on
that.
this one.
Yeah. So it's good that you remind the would-be voters for the general election that the Republican Party does not support recreational.
No, this is my
tobacco.
personal
Well,
opinion. The party doesn't have a stand on it.
Okay, I'm happy to clarify that for you.
Well,
Go
guys,
on all night.
Mama Bree's giving me the rap sign.
Yeah.
So.
It's been fun.
3 quick points. Juan Carlos, should have ran for AG. I would have voted for you. Okay, that's the first thing. Second, my good friend Tony Leon Guerrero for many years must be very, very proud in heaven for
Right,
Lou.
yeah.
And certainly Ray Tenorio's mom, his #1 fan. Every single election we ever did any work with, his mom was always there for him, and she must be very pleased for him also. And I think that we are a product of our families and of our support structure. And in the end, one day, real soon, these elections are going to be over. Then we have to choose to move on and move ahead, regardless of who gets elected.
Wonderful words, Ron.
Thank you.
Let's shake hands.
We'll have the unity pledge ready the next
All right,
time.
good.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. On behalf of our analysts, again, former Senator Rory Respicio from obviously the Lou and Josh campaign, our House political analyst, Dr. Rob McNinch, and from the Republican Party of Guam, the Executive Director, Juan Carlos Benitez, sticking up for Democratic Party recounts. Interesting. My co-host Sabrina Salas-Matsanani. My name's Chris. Thanks for watching the After Party. Estaha Jos.
Very good.